Hello, MCU fans! Today is another video in my continuing series of closing down calendar year 2023 in the MCU, and of course looking ahead at all we have to look forward to in the future. Now, today's video is the State of Villainy, one of my favorites, because, we all love our heroes, but there's just something fun about the villains. There's so many of them. They keep popping up when you never expect them. They're dead, then they're alive again, then they're dead again. So just love it. It's so much fun to try to keep track of everything. Also, it is interesting, I mentioned dead, right? Marvel has a habit of killing off an awful lot of its villains. So I'm just curious, before we get to the final counts, what do you think the ratio is between the number of dead villains and the number of villains that are still alive? I mean, obviously there's more that are dead. That's a given, right? But is it 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1? Kind of just keep that in mind, and you may be surprised. I was certainly surprised by the final count. It's also worth noting there will be spoilers for, well, pretty much everything in the MCU. Now, if you haven't seen the Marvels yet, you can skip past that chapter, but honestly, knowing how Marvel handles its villains, it's probably not a surprise what happens in that movie. But nonetheless, you can skip past that if you don't want to know the fate of the villains in that movie. So without further ado, let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we do have the December contest running all month long. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment. One random winner will be announced on a video in early January and can choose from one of the books or steel books above. Best of luck. Also, we do have the new membership option in case you want to support the channel in that way, but really any way that you want to support the channel is greatly appreciated, whether it's just subscribing, liking videos, or leaving comments. It's all greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Okay, so the categories for the villains. They're going to get a big old red X if they are dead. So basically, as far as we can tell, as far as we can discern, they're truly dead. Otherwise, they're going to be considered alive, because if you don't see the body, there's a very good chance they're still alive. Then we have on probation. That's basically anyone who started out villainous, but by the end of the movie or show, stopped being a villain. But they haven't done anything heroic yet, right? So we just don't know what they're going to do next. That puts them on probation. Versus reformed means they started off villainous, but by the end of the movie or show, they did do something heroic. They really turned that corner, and so assuming they continue on that path, then they're reformed. We're also going to have a red box to indicate someone is appearing for a second time, which, oh my word, for the counts, that is so important. If you don't have that, things get really difficult. And lastly, we're going to put the dotted red box if someone is a variant or from another universe, and those just keep popping up left and right as we go further and further into the multiverse saga. So, for the movies and shows, for the most part, I'm going to go in release order. However, for the prequel movies, Captain America, Captain Marvel, and Black Widow, you really have to put them at the point where they occur in the timeline, or it's just really difficult keeping track of these counts. So therefore, we're starting with Captain America, the first Avenger. That gave us the Red Skull, Heinz Kruger, and Arnim Zola, and by the end of the movie, 1 was dead and 2 were alive. Then we move to Captain Marvel. Boy, lots of villains in this. We get Jan Rog, the members of his Star Force, Minerva, Atlas, and Bronchar. Is that how you say his name? I don't think it was actually said in the movie, but I think that's his name. Talos, Ronan, Korath, the Supreme Intelligence, and Norex, the Science Guy. So by the end of the movie, we have 1 dead and 2 reformed. However, as we will see in Marvel movies, if you're a villain and you reform, there's a good chance you end up dead. So R.I.P. Norex, the Science Guy. All right, then we move to Iron Man. Iron Man gives us Stain and Raza, and by the end of the movie, both are dead. Then we move to Incredible Hulk with Abomination, Ross, and Stearns, aka the leader. Now, by the end of this movie, we end up all of them still alive, and amazingly, all still continue to appear, because even Stearns, the leader, is supposed to be showing up in Captain America 4. Crazy that way back in 2008, this movie, every one of the main villains has returned. Wild. All right, then Iron Man 2 gives us Whiplash, my main man Justin Hammer, and Senator Stern. And yes, I realize he isn't technically villainous in this movie. However, we know he ends up being Hydra, and once Hydra, always Hydra. By the end of the movie, 1 dead and 2 alive. And supposedly we are getting Justin Hammer back again. Please, Marvel, let that be the case. Supposedly in Armor Wars. Bring him on. All right, so then we have Thor. Thor gives us Loki, Laufey, the Destroyer, and Sitwell. Again, once Hydra, always Hydra. And by the end of the movie, we have 2 dead and 2 alive. And of course, the Destroyer ultimately gets used his spare parts for that weapon that Coulson used in Avengers. So his death had meaning, right? Speaking of the Avengers, that gives us the Chitauri, Thanos, the Other, Loki, and Sitwell. Now, here's where these boxes really come in handy, because 2 of them are already in the count. So, by the end of the movie, all of them are still alive, but notice the count went from 15 to 18. It only went up by 3 because we can't include Loki and Sitwell because they're already in the count. So yeah, these boxes become really, really important. Then we have Iron Man 3. That gave us Killian, Maya, his extremist warriors, both of them, Trevor, and the Vice President. And by the end, 3 dead and 2 reformed. But remember, becoming reformed often leads to dead. So we end up with actually 4 dead and 1 reformed. And we know ultimately Trevor is reformed because of what he helped, actually. He helped turn over the Mandarin. So that's why I'm considering him reformed. Let me know what you think. Maybe he's on probation, but I'm going to give him reformed. All right, then we have Thor the Dark World. Gives us Curse, Malekith, Loki returning, and the Collector. And by the end, 2 dead and 2 alive. Okay, so this next one, Captain America the Winter Soldier, this one about broke me when I made this video the first time around because I didn't have the red boxes. You'll see how important they become as we go through this one. All right, so we have Sitwell, who's returning. We have Pierce, Rumlow, who of course eventually becomes Crossbones. We have Rollins, who's a member of his strike team. We have Arnim Zola returning, finally, from way back in Captain America. We have Batroc. We have Dr. List, who appears in the post-credit scene. We have Senator Stern, who's reappearing. And we have Bucky, the Winter Soldier. So by the end of the movie, 3 have died, and Bucky is essentially reformed. I mean, he certainly helped save Cap, so I'm considering him reformed versus just on probation. But these counts are what's so interesting. So notice the alive count only went from 20 to 22, so it only went up by 2. Well, why is that? Well, because Rumlow, Rollins, Batroc, and Dr. List are all new characters who aren't in the count yet, so it goes up by 4. Senator Stearns has no impact because he's already in the count. However, Sitwell and Arnim Zola were already in the alive count, and they moved to the dead category. So if you come in and you've already been in a previous movie, but then you change your status, you actually affect 2 different things. So it went up by 4, but down by 2, so therefore only up by 2. I was told there would be no math. This is more complicated than we thought, right? The villains just keep popping up left and right and when you least expect them. I love it. It's awesome. Anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy gives us the Collector, Yondu, the return of Korath, the return of Ronan. You see why that's important to put Captain Marvel first, by the way. Thanos, Nebula, and the Other. And by the end, we have 3 dead, 1 on probation. I'm calling Yondu on probation because he still was acting, pretty obnoxious. Yes, he quit being a villain. He did. He helped, and you could argue he did a heroic act, but then he wanted the Power Stone. So who knows what he would have done with that. So I'm putting him on probation. You could argue maybe he's reformed, but I'm calling him probation. All right, then we have Avengers Age of Ultron with, obviously, Ultron, Claw, Von Strucker, Dr. List returning, Quicksilver, and Wanda. By the end, we have 3 dead, a lot of carnage, and 2 reformed. But, unfortunately for Quicksilver, reformed soon turns to dead. So 4 dead, yikes, and 1 reformed. All right, then we have Ant-Man. Gave us Yellow Jacket and Mitchell Carson, who one of these days he's going to be back. I'm telling you, that dude is coming back because he's got those particles, and I want to know what you're up to, buddy. I want to know. So originally I had Yellow Jacket dead, but now, of course, we know he's not because he returns in Quantumania, so they are both still alive. Although, being turned into MODOK, is that really alive? Ugh, poor dude. All right, then we have Captain America Civil War with the return of Rumlow, now officially Crossbones. We have Baron Zemo and the return of Ross. Yes, he's back from Incredible Hulk days. By the end, we have 1 dead and 2 still alive. And remember, the count only went up by, the count is crazy on alive because Rumlow comes in alive, moves to dead. Ross is already counted, and then we add Zemo. So, yeah, craziness. So then we move to Black Widow. Black Widow gives us Dreykov, Red Guardian, Melina, Taskmaster, Ross back again, Val, and Yelena. So by the end of the movie, we have 1 dead, 2 definitely reformed, Red Guardian and Melina, and 2 on probation, Taskmaster, because Taskmaster hasn't done anything really good yet. And Val, I mean, you could still consider Val a villain, but All Val did is pass on the obviously false information about Hawkeye, but maybe she didn't know. I mean, Kingpin gave it to her. So it's hard to decide whether she's a villain in this or on probation. But Yelena, I'm sorry, I'm going to call her a villain because she was willing to take the sus information about Hawkeye and then go try to kill him. So yeah, she's a villain. Maybe that's not fair, but I'm calling Val on probation. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, Doctor Strange gave us Dormammu, Chrysalis, and Mordo. And by the end, Chrysalis is dead, and Mordo and Dormammu are still alive. Then we get Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That gives us Ego, Taserface, who I'm using to represent all the Ravagers because there were so many Ravagers killed, my word. Aisha, Nebula coming in as a villain because she still wants to kill Gamora, and Yondu coming in on probation after the first Guardians movie. Now, by the end of the movie, we end up with 2 dead, and both Nebula and Yondu being reformed, doing heroic acts and helping. But unfortunately, when you start doing heroic acts as a reformed villain, you sometimes end up dead. So yet another dead, reformed former villain. All right, then we have Spider-Man Homecoming. That gave us Shocker 1, Shocker 2, Vulture, the Tinkerer, Aaron, a.k.a. I'm hoping the Prowler eventually, and Gargan, I'm hoping, a.k.a. Scorpion eventually. By the end, we had 1 dead and everybody else alive. So a lot of Spider-Man villains still out there. Then we have Thor Ragnarok. That gave us Surtur, Hela, the Executioner, Fenris, the Grandmaster, Valkyrie, Loki, still I'm arguing villainous at this point, and Topaz. A lot of carnage in this movie. By the end, Surtur and Hela I am calling dead. You could argue we didn't see the body, but Surtur thrust his blade through Hela, and then all of Asgard blew up. So, I mean, if they're still alive, they're basically floating in space powerless, because Hela's power, remember, came from Asgard. So, I mean, and same with Surtur and his crown. That was surely blown off. So, I mean, I guess we can say they're floating in space pointlessly, but I think they've got to be dead. Obviously, Fenris killed and Topaz killed. Then, unfortunately, Executioner, he was reformed, which means he ends up dead. And then we're leaving Valkyrie as reformed, and Loki finally is reformed. Good job. So he walks out of Thor Ragnarok being a hero, and Grandmaster still being a villain. Sorry, dude. Then we have Black Panther. That gives us Killmonger, N'Jabu, M'Baku, W'Kabi, and Claw returning. By the end, we have 3 dead. M'Baku, I'm considering reformed because he was definitely a hero in this. Man, W'Kabi, I don't know. He still seemed on the outs with folks, and he was supposed to appear in Wakanda Forever. I think because of scheduling for the actor, he didn't appear. So we just don't know. So I'm going to call him on probation. Let me know if you disagree in the comments, but yeah, I think we got to keep an eye on him. All right, so then we have Avengers Infinity War. Wow, now it starts getting real. We got Thanos, the 4 members of the Black Order, the Collector returning, Ross returning, a Red Skull returning. Wow, after all this time, that's crazy. And Loki returning as a reformed Loki. But unfortunately, by the end, man, 5 dead. 5 dead. That's crazy. And then 4 of the returning villains still alive. All right, so then we move to Ant-Man and the Wasp. And in that, we get Sonny Birch, Ghost, Bill Foster, a.k.a. Goliath, and Elias Starr, who is Ghost's father. So by the end, we end up with Ghost. I'm going to call her on probation, and same for Bill Foster, because both of them, stopped being villainous, but I don't know that they necessarily did anything heroic. And of course, Elias Starr ends up dying in the flashback. All right, so now we move on to Avengers Endgame, and this gets crazy. So we got Thanos returning. We've got 2014 variant Thanos, 2012 variant Loki, 2014 variant Nebula, Black Order, and Chitauri, just plain Ross returning, 2012 variant Sitwell, Pierce, Rollins, and Rumlow, and 2014 variant Red Skull. Oh my word. Then, after the murder fest that is Avengers Endgame, we end up with complete and utter carnage, right? Both Thanoses are dead. From 2014, Nebula, the Black Order, and the Chitauri, dead. Now, Loki, from 2012, gets taken away by the TVA in his villainous form. Ross, I'm putting on probation because, he could have chased after the Avengers when they hung up on him, but he seems like he finally just accepted, I need them, I'm going to let them do their stuff. So I'm going to move him to on probation. Then the 2012 Sitwell, Pierce, Rollins, and Rumlow, as well as the 2014 Red Skull. I'm not even including them in the counts for dead because they just vanished. They weren't actually in combat like everybody else was, the other variants, from 2012 and 2014. Instead, they just vanished, either because Steve Rogers returned the stones and when he returned them, it clipped the branch. That's one possibility. Or if not, I'm sure the TVA pruned it afterwards. The question is, how did they go away? I really wish Marvel would show us the special presentation where Steve returns the stones, or even I would accept a novel. If it's too expensive to film, write a book. Just give us the official answer. I'd love it. Anyway, that is Avengers Endgame. Craziness. All right, so Spider-Man Far From Home gave us Mysterio, William, Janice, and Gunter. That's Mysterio's crew, of course. And J. Jonah Jameson. Yes, buddy, I love you. I'm so glad you're back, but you're a villain. You're an Alex Jones-style villain, big time. So at the end, I'm going to count Mysterio as dead for a couple reasons. Number one, his illusions were turned off, so his death seemed to have been real. Obviously, Peter Parker was arrested for his death. You would think they had to have a body to arrest him. And even if Mysterio is still around, all his devices were confiscated and everybody knows his tricks. So I loved Mysterio, don't get me wrong, but Spider-Man is my favorite hero, so I love Mysterio, but there's no point in him returning. Plus, I'm pretty sure he's dead. But let me know what you think in the comments. All right, then we have WandaVision. Agatha Harkness, the return of Wanda, who, of course, at this point is reformed, Vision, Hayward, and Pietro, a la fake Pietro. So by the end, Wanda, sorry, you're on probation. I understand why she did everything she did. In fact, WandaVision is one of my favorite Marvel entries, but you got to put her on probation. Vision hasn't done anything heroic, White Vision, that is. So you got to put him on probation. But, Pietro, hey, he turned over a new leaf. He's good. All right, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We have the Flag Smashers, which again I'm just representing by Carly because there were a ton of them. We have U.S. Agent, Batrick is returning, Zemo returning, Val returning, and Sharon Carter obviously taking a villainous turn. So by the end, we have the Flag Smashers and Batrick dead. I'm going to put U.S. Agent as on probation. You could argue he's reformed because he did do some heroic things, but then the fact that he's associating with Val when Val is totally sketch. So that's one of the more debatable ones. If you think he should be on probation or on reformed, let me know what you think. Zemo definitely on probation, Val still on probation, and Sharon Carter in the villain category. Very, very interesting to see when she returns. I theorized she was a Skrull, honestly, and turned out that she isn't, well, at least not yet. She still could be. Still could be. Then we have Loki. Loki gave us He Who Remains, Ravonna, who is obviously a variant, Alioth, classic Loki, variant. We got our variant Loki from Avengers Endgame 2012, and Sylvie, who of course is a variant. By the end, we had one death and two reformed. Now finally, the 2012 Loki I would consider reformed versus Sylvie. Sorry, Sylvie, I'm going to put you still as a villain. You killed He Who Remains, didn't care whether it would destroy the entire multiverse, and you took off. So, no offense, you're a villain. Classic Loki, though, definitely reformed, which sadly means also dead. Yikes. Do not want to be a reformed villain in the MCU. All right, What If? Obviously, everyone in What If is a variant. So we have Ultron, Infinity Ultron. We have Killmonger, Zemo back again, proving that it is possible. Zemo. I said Zemo. I did that last year, too. I'm pretty sure I did that last year and got a lot of comments about it. Zola. We have Zola, which does prove Zola can come back. If he came back here, he could come back in the main MCU. They just haven't done it yet. But anyway, we also have Supreme Strange. So by the end, Ultron is dead. Of course, Zola and Killmonger are still trapped, and Supreme Strange is reformed. Then we have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Gives us Wenwu, the Dweller in Darkness, the Death Dealer, Abomination finally returning, very cool, Razor Fist, and Xialing. By the end, we have Wenwu reforming, we have the Death Dealer and the Dweller in Darkness killed. I'm going to keep Abomination on probation. He's not a villain, certainly. He's working with Wong, so he's trying to help, but still, he broke out of jail, so he's got to be on probation. And Razor Fist and Xialing, I'm putting them both on probation because we just don't know what they're going to do next. Are they going to break bad with the Ten Rings? Are they going to be good, or a little bit of both? We don't know. And then Wen Wu, we can't forget, he reformed, right? And led to him dying. Oi. Tough, tough, tough to be a reform villain. Okay, then we have Eternals. We have Icarus and Sprite, and then we have the Deviants being represented just by Crow, and we have Arishem. Now, I've had some people say, hey, why are you calling Arishem a villain? And you could argue he's not, because he put Tiamat in the earth with the purpose of keeping the galaxy, the universe alive, right? But from the perspective of the people living on Earth, he would be a villain. So that's the perspective I'm using, because if we get into a bunch of morality plays, it gets really difficult. But I do agree that he isn't a villain in the grander sense, probably, but to everyone on Earth, he would be a villain. All right, so by the end, we have Icarus reforming, we have Sprite reforming, Crow being killed, and then we have Icarus being killed. Now, you could argue we didn't see the body, and that is very true, but I don't see any way, no matter how powerful the different Eternals are, he flew into the heart of the sun, so I am going to call him dead. Let me know in the comments what you think, but I really do think he's dead, and we won't be seeing him again. All right, then we have Hawkeye. Gave us Eleanor Bishop, Kazi, Kingpin, the Tracksuit Mafia, Echo, and Yelena returning, which again, I'm saying returning as a villain because she pretty much wanted to kill Hawkeye and didn't even want to check the information first. That's the biggest thing. Had she checked the information first, I wouldn't call her a villain. But she was like, okay, I'll kill him. So by the end, though, I do think she's on probation. She didn't necessarily do anything heroic. She just stopped trying to kill Hawkeye. And Echo, I'm going to put on a probation as well because we don't know what she's going to do next. Now, Kazi and Kingpin, those are both interesting. I think we all know there's no way they killed Kingpin, but you could argue it looked like he was dead, but we didn't see the body. And I would actually say the same for Kazi. He was stabbed in the stomach by Echo, but the stomach is, you can recover from that. There's nothing vital there. You can't eat a lot of food for a while, but still, there's no vital organs. And we see him dropped out of scene. So we don't actually see him die. If he does not show up in Echo, I'll probably consider that he's dead. But even the wiki makes it sound like he's alive. The Marvel Cinematic Universe wiki, of course, the best wiki on the planet, lists him as alive. So I'm going to consider him alive for now. But let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, then we have Spider-Man No Way Home. Variants everywhere, right? Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Electro, Lizard, Sandman, even a little bit of a Venom goo, which is clearly a variant. And then J. Jonah Jameson. Sorry, Jay, you're still, I love you, man, still a villain. By the end, though, showing how awesome Spider-Man is, 5 reform villains. So basically, before they were sent back, they were all cured. Who knows what happened? So many different debates when they were returned. I'm guessing it created a new branch in their universes to keep the original movies intact. And then hopefully they each found a way to save themselves. At least they were given a fighting chance. As for Venom, I guess it's not fair to call the goo a villain yet, but certainly it's on probation. Hasn't done anything heroic and has shown a tendency to be not heroic. So on probation. All right, then we have Moon Knight. That gave us Harrow, Amit, and Anton, who would have become the Midnight Man. Unfortunately, the actor tragically passed away, R.I.P. Maybe they'll recast if they do a Moon Knight Season 2, because the Midnight Man is a cool villain, but we also may never see him again. However, his character in-universe is still alive, and on the other hand, Harrow and Amit are both dead. Granted, again, you didn't see the body, so in fairness, by my own rule, you could argue Harrow's alive, but ain't no way with the Godfather killing they left him alive. If somehow they missed or didn't hit vital organs, then they shot about 15 more times. So he's dead, and therefore Amit died as well. All right, then we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We have Sinister Strange, Wanda coming back, most definitely on probation, Mordo variant, Gargantos, and the Ribbon Monster, which is from another universe, so it gets the red dashed lines around it. By the end, Sinister Strange is dead. Wanda is still on probation. I mean, you could argue during the movie she turned ultra-villainous, but then by the end, by sacrificing herself, I think that was at least got her on probation again. And speaking of sacrificing herself, talk about the most controversial, is she dead or not? I mean, even the timeline book seemed to imply she's dead. So she might be. She might be in the witch's afterlife, whatever that is. I'm keeping her alive because that red flash that we saw might well have been her teleporting away. Could have even been a defense mechanism that she was unaware of, right? An automatic defense where her subconscious teleported away. So Because of that red flash, I'm marking her alive for now. But she was clearly very badly wounded. And Gargantos was killed, obviously. Then we have Miss Marvel. We have Najma, who is basically representing all of the clandestine, terrible villains. But nonetheless, I'm not going to list them all. And then Deaver, who was clearly a villain in her role in damage control. Najma was reformed by the end, which that was great, which, of course, then means she died. Ouch. Then we have Thor, Love, and Thunder. We got Gore, Zeus, and Hercules. By the end, Gore was reformed, and Zeus and Hercules are still villainous, and of course, Gore then died. Yikes. Then we have She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Oh my word, so many villains. I mean, it was 9 episodes, but still. Okay, we have Todd, Titania. We have Abomination returning, currently on probation. We have Frogman. We have the Wrecking Crew. We have Man-Bull, Seraphim. We have Donnie Blaze, who, yes, I am considering a villain because, he was awful at stealing the magic. We have Josh, might be the worst villain of the entire series, stealing her blood and then taking those pictures of her. And then El Aguila and Porcupine. So by the end, we had a lot of them reformed. In fact, you could argue the 4 at the retreat, we just didn't know if they were villains or not, but they started off a little sketch. But yeah, by the end, definitely reformed. Donnie Blaze, dude, you're on probation. You stopped being a villain, but I do not trust you. The Wrecker, actually, is now reformed because he showed up at the retreat. I'm still going to keep Abomination on probation because he escaped from jail. That is a crime, technically. So you're on probation, buddy. But everybody else still alive. Still alive. All right, Werewolf by Night, we have Verussa and all of the hunters, every one of which died by the end. That thing was carnage. Everybody dead. Then we have Wakanda Forever. Namor, Atuma, Namorita, and Val coming back, still on probation. And by the end, I'm going to also put Namor on probation. Didn't really do anything heroic other than he stopped fighting. And Val, I've heard some people theorize maybe we should call her a villain because she was dreaming about stealing the vibranium. But, she hasn't done it yet. I guess there's nothing wrong with dreaming, but she's getting pretty sketch. She is as close to being villainous, but I'm still holding out probation until she does something outright villainous. All right, then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. That gave us the main Kang that we saw in the Quantum Realm. MODOK returning, good old Darren Cross. Oh, so crazy looking. We have Skylar, and then we got the 3 Kang Council members, Immortus, Ramatut, and the Scarlet Centurion. By the end, Skylar dead, MODOK reformed, which of course then led to him dying, which I really liked MODOK in this one. I thought he was great. And I am not listing the Kang from the Quantum Realm as dead because I am 99.9% sure that he was sucked into that multiversal core, is going to become the Beyonder, basically the MCU equivalent of the Beyonder, and be returning for Secret Wars. Now, I guess if they move away from Kang, depending on how the whole situation works with Jonathan Majors and whether they recast, and there's lots up in the air, so maybe they don't end up going that direction, but I'm betting he's still alive. All right, so then we get to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now that gives us High Evolutionary, the return of Aisha, Warlock, and then the Hellspawn, which include Octohyena, Behemoth, and Warpig. Now by the end of the movie, all of the Hellspawn are gone. Not a good day to be them. Also Aisha. And then on the other hand, we have Warlock, who is now reformed, obviously has joined the Guardians, and High Evolutionary, it sure looked like he died, but James Gunn revealed after the fact that he was carried off by the Guardians, which you can see briefly in the movie, and then there's deleted scenes that show that he's now a prisoner on Nowhere. So he is definitely alive. Then we have Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion gave us Gravik, Rava, who was pretending to be Rhodey, of course, Pagan, several other members of Gravik's crew, which Pagan's just going to kind of represent a bunch of them because lots got killed, obviously. Talos returns, who is currently reformed, and Gaia. So by the end, a lot of death, whole lot of death. And then Gaia, I'm going to consider her reformed because she did do a heroic act, taking out Gravik. I guess we don't know what she's going to do next, but it seems like she's being helpful with MI6. So we'll see where she appears next, if we see her again. They better at least wrap her storyline up. I kind of hope she gets depowered down to maybe just having the Extremis, because maybe all the other stuff was temporary somehow because she did it so quickly all at once. I don't know. They can come up with all kinds of reasons, but right now, she's super powerful. All right, then we have Loki season 2. So He Who Remains, who was dead, returned. So, but he started out dead, right? So we have Ravonna returning. We have Miss Minutes, who I couldn't. Was she really villainous in the first season? I don't know. She certainly was villainous though by this season. We have Loki returning, who was already reformed, and Sylvie, who was in the doghouse for now for all her actions. So by the end, we now have Sylvie reformed because I think that she tried to help certainly. Miss Minutes, sorry, even though you've been rebooted, you're on probation. You're on probation. Ravonna's still out there, and He Who Remains came in dead and exited dead. And then we move to the Marvels. So this is obviously the last movie that came out in 2023. What If is still coming out, but hasn't arrived yet. And as I said earlier, if you don't want to know anything about the Marvels, you probably want to check out now, because I'll talk about the status of the villains, and then they'll also show up in the summary at the end. But honestly speaking, you can kind of guess what happens, right? We know what Marvel does with villains, and it's not really a big spoiler. But anyway, if you want to exit now, just giving you a chance. And I'm now assuming you're gone if you don't want to know that, yes, they both died, right? And then notice the alive count went down by 1, because again, if you come in and you've already appeared, like the Supreme Intelligence, then multiple things are going on. So, okay, I'd asked at the beginning of the video what you might think the ratio between dead and alive is. I'm pretty surprised. 87 to 57. That is a much lower count of dead to alive than I would have expected. I thought it'd be 2 to 1, maybe 3 to 1. Plus, if you throw in the people on probation, the 19, you're almost the same number alive that are dead. Now, granted, probation probably means they're not going to return to villainy, but they could. And then, of course, we have 24 reformed. So I don't know. I mean, 87 is a ton of dead villains. Don't get me wrong. But I really thought there wouldn't be many left alive. So let's take a look at who we have left dead and alive. So first, let's talk dead. So these are the ones I would consider secondary villains. Like, I hate for any villain to go because they all have value, but you could argue none of these are a huge loss. I mean, they're a loss, but not a huge loss. I mean, let me know what you think in the comments. If anybody here, you think I'm giving the short stick when they deserve more credit. But I'm fine with these being dead. These are the ones that are harder for me. Now, these are the dead primary villains, I'm calling them. Now, primary either because they're really awesome, or primary because they were the main villain in whatever movie or show they were in. But look at that top row, though. Man, Thanos, Mysterio, Ultron, He Who Remains, Killmonger, fantastic villain, Hela. I mean, then on the second row, Ego and Haro, those were both awesome. The Black Order, Zola, who may or may not be dead, I realize. Crossbones, Claw, Surtur. I mean, so many good villains. So yeah, some of these are really tough. But on the other hand, you got to let some of them go, right? And we can't have all of these villains still around. But yeah, it's tough. I wish we hadn't lost some of these. Now let's look at the dead but reformed, right? So these are folks who died but reformed at the very end. So that's a pretty big number. Who ended as a hero, if you will. So that's really cool. Then we have flat out reformed. So these are ones that I just, kind of doubt they'll end up being villainous again. And they're now helping out. And some of them were heroes. I mean, obviously Nebula, for example, is a flat out hero. Bucky is a flat out hero. So anyway, that's kind of interesting to see. The bottom is the Spider-Man villains are all down there, as well as some other variants. Loki, obviously Sylvie. So pretty cool. Then we have those on probation. These are the ones who are waiting to see what's their next move. And of course, the top row, that's the Thunderbolts, right? Although I know not Abomination yet. I'm still, fingers crossed, Abomination is going to show up on the Thunderbolts. Please, please. But Zemo, Miss Minutes, Ross, who, obviously R.I.P., the actors died, William Hurt. But they've clearly recast him because he's going to be showing up again. So these are all on probation, waiting to see what they do next. And then we do actually have a lot of villains still alive. Now, I consider these kind of secondary villains, although I love Justin Hammer. I love Justin Hammer. But these are all secondary villains who we may or may not ever see again. And if we do, they'll be in more of a supporting role, most likely. Obviously, the upper right-hand corner, all 3 of the actors in the upper right have passed. So we won't be seeing them again, most likely. Although you never know, recasting Ross, right? But yeah, these are all secondary villains I would consider. And then, hey, we have some good ones still alive. In fact, the top row, that's Spider-Man Alley. Every villain on the top row is a Spider-Man villain. That's pretty cool. And yes, I am still considering Vulture to be in the MCU because that Morbius post-credit scene is the worst thing that's ever come to cinema. Oh, I can't stand it. It's terrible. It's terrible. I'm hoping actually in the Spider-Verse, across the Spider-Verse, when Miguel was returning people back to the correct universes, that he returned Vulture. Please, please. But yeah, there's a lot of good villains here. Obviously, Kang and all his variants. What if Zemo from What If were to make it over to the main universe? That would be cool. High Evolutionary, Hercules, Grandmaster and Collector. Got to have those two back. Arishem, Dormammu. Really, still a lot of good villains if you think about it. But a lot were dead. Okay, so bring on the bad guys, right? Now we move into 2024 when we're going to see more and more bad guys. And what I kind of like about this is we're really close. I love this book, by the way. This is a book written by Stan Lee, I think it was in the 70s, of his favorite main villains. Almost every one of these has come to fruition. We're still waiting on Doctor Doom, but rumor is he's coming soon. And still waiting on Mephisto, but rumor is he's coming soon. So yeah, it's kind of weird to think that these villains were, at least in Stan Lee's mind, the best villains out there. And two of them, Doctor Doom and Mephisto, we're just now getting. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, so don't forget, we do have the December contest. Be a subscriber and leave a comment, and you could win a book or steelbook. And we also have the membership option in case you're interested. And then, of course, we have Discord. And it's just worth noting, I'm not going to go over all of these, but there are so many fun events. This is a good reason to join the Discord. There's rewatches of different movies. Then we'll have What If Season 2. We'll be watching those live. We have all kinds of different events, the Comic Club, going through lots of the different awesome comic series that have been out there. And then rewatches of things like the Netflix shows, which are fantastic. And of course, going to have an Aquaman rewatch right before Aquaman 2 comes out in theaters. So I will leave a pinned comment if you want to join the Discord. We'd love to have you join. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.